When I was in college, I worked at a car wash. I worked at a taco stand. Very sexy jobs, by the way. Then I got some random job at a recruiting firm downtown. It's funny, actually, my first job was right down there. It was very flashy. And I'm like, I probably need to follow my own advice because this is not what I'm passionate about. And finally, I applied to Reach Local, a marketing firm up in Plano, and got me an entry-level marketing job. And so that whole path took about a year.
So you graduate and you're not in multifamily, you're in a different industry.
So what's funny is...
From baseball pitcher to drumline captain to skater kid, Christian Belew spent his early years trying everything until a chance interview at a property marketing firm sparked an unexpected passion. Now, as managing director at RPM Living, he's helped grow the marketing team from 4 to over 100 people by leading with trust and a simple philosophy. Sometimes the path forward isn't about perfection, but being sharp enough to seize the right opportunity. The RPM journey started when?
Actually started the day of the COVID lockdown. March 16th, 2020, I think it was. The day that the president was like, okay, nobody go to work. Times like that through your life, you get put in those situations, you gotta rise. And I rose at that time, kind of surprised myself. I definitely surprised my family because, you know,
Christian, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited to dive into a lot of things. I think the best place to start here is what does somebody need to know about Christian in his early years to understand him today?
Oh man, good question. People ask me, you know, where I come from or what do I do, you know? And I think the latest venture is marketing, right? That's kind of why we're here. But I've done a lot. You know, my parents, when I was younger, they to keep us off the streets or, you know, from hanging out too much, they said, you know, I don't care what you do, but you got to do something. And so that means, you know, you got to be involved in something. And so early on, you know, I've been a baseball player, big baseball player. I was a pitcher, travel ball in high school, played with some really, you know, really great coaches and people like that. I've been a skateboarder and a snowboarder, you know, kind of my extreme phase, my Tony Hawk phase. I was a drumline captain in high school, did the fraternity thing in college, you know, and again, so now I'm here as a marketing person, but I think from all those places to here, you know, you just pick up these little lessons, you know, and I know that those things really, you know, they matter whenever you get to your professional career. The lessons your coaches taught you, the falling down and getting up from, you know, snowboarding, you know, being a leader as a drumline captain, you know, having to wake up at the crack of dawn and go set up drums and stuff like that. And so all those little things from childhood, I would say, you know, have had a huge impact on how I want to lead my team. That doesn't necessarily mean, you know, being a stickler on everybody and you know, everything all the time. I think a lot of it kind of actually means the opposite. It's kind of a, you know, hey, we're here and we're going to do our best and we're going to try and, you know, kind of try to hold those things dear whenever I'm talking to my team about marketing campaigns and stuff. So kind of weird. It, you know, you might not see it when you look at it, but whenever, you know, you're in there, you start to see it.
So question. So you said drumline, skateboarder, baseball. Yeah. What was the most challenging extracurricular activity that you did growing up?
I'd say drumline. I think that's where, you know, I think sometimes you get put into a leadership position maybe before you know you're ready. And that's kind of a make or break situation sometimes in, you know, your early development. It's like, okay, you've been given this, you know, you're a good enough drummer. Are you going to be a good leader too? And so, you know, it wasn't just playing the drums well, it was making sure that my team was supported, you know, getting up, setting up for them, showing them that I'm willing to be at a football stadium ready to practice at literally 5:30 a.m. on a, random October Tuesday when it's, 40 degrees outside. It's not easy, especially for I was probably 17 at the time, and so at 17, you're like, when do I get out of school so I can go, be a 17-year-old? But, I think times like that through your life, you get put in those situations, you got to kind of rise. And I rose at that time, kind of surprised myself. I definitely surprised my family because, again, you're 17, I was not the academic, superstar or anything like that. So they saw me waking up at 5 a.m. and going to the stadium. They're like, all right, this must mean a lot to him. But I think that was the hardest thing because you really have to just kind of do it and show up and prove to yourself sometimes that, you can do these things that you otherwise wouldn't think you could.
So do you find that being involved in so many extracurricular activities as a kid helped instill discipline? Because one of the things I find very interesting is in many cases, athletes actually have a difficult time self-regulating once they exit sports. Because if you grow up playing sports or being in an institution that cultivates, your discipline, your schedule, when you exit that, you have to cultivate your own schedule. Did you find any challenge in maintaining discipline as you kind of exited sports?
Yes. And I don't think it was, again, I don't necessarily think it was sports related. I think it was just, you're 17, you turn 18, I'm going to college now. You get excited about these things and you have total freedom. And so now you're off on your own, right? And so you can kind of make a decision on how much you're going to invest and how serious you're going to take things. So when I got to college, after being on drumline, I think my discipline kind of tanked a little bit because, if you don't have those people and those leaders kind of holding you accountable. And so I think my point is that you've got to find something right away. You got to find something else, a program or a club or a activity or something that's immediately going to hold you accountable again. That's where I find my motivation is, if it was just me, if I was an entrepreneur like you, I think I might have trouble. I think that's a skill I would really have to work out is self-discipline to myself. I mean, that probably sounds goofy, but when you have people and teams and parents and family members and kind of the support team who wants you to do well, for me, I want to prove that I can do that. So all that said, I went to college after, losing my discipline for a little bit, joined a fraternity. It was a leadership fraternity. That was kind of the thing. There were student body government and stuff like that. And so that immediately just got this whole group of people to kind of hold me or want to hold myself accountable to make sure I don't disappoint them, I guess. So yes, but I think the trick is jumping right into something if you don't feel like you have that accountability group or something like that. Yeah,
that's one of I feel like the hardest transitions for people when they are moving from having a role at a company to starting your own thing is there's no structure
there's no boss.
There's no boss. There's no system that is holding you accountable. It's literally you.
Yep.
And I think for me, when I think about like why I may be in a better position than most for that is because I never really, I played basketball a little bit, but I was always somebody that like kind of did my own thing.
Totally.
Like, I, instead of like playing a bunch of sports, I would go to the gym, and that was like my thing that was independent. So it's interesting because I just like observe how athletes, when they're in this system, or, I don't know what drumline is like, but it's difficult to transition.
I can definitely see that. I think you also have to care, and that probably sounds really vague, but you have to find something that you care about. And I loved playing the drums. It was very important to me. And so being that leader for the drumline, it kind of came naturally, and so if you're in things that, you know, may or may not care, you're kind of wishy-washy, it's gonna be hard to lose that discipline, or it's gonna be easy to lose that discipline pretty easily. I wanted to ask, were you the kid who was selling the candy bars in school? You know, there's always that kid who is like selling snacks and things for $1 out of a box. Like, were you that guy? I mean, that's the entrepreneurial thing, right?
It's so funny you bring that up. So we had it was called a tuck shop. So I actually grew up in the Bay Area. Okay. But when I was 12, my family and I moved to India. Okay. So my dad got offered the opportunity to join early stage startup. Okay. So me, my 2 siblings, and my parents, we all moved to India, and I went to an international school.
Awesome.
And in the school, they had something called a tuck shop.
Okay.
And I remember, not me, but my brother, it's funny, he would actually, you bring up the selling candy. Yeah. He would sell, there was this girl in my class my brother's 2 years younger, that kind of had a crush on him. Okay. And he would sell her, not sell her, but she would like give him like tuck shop money to get a hug. And like that, when he said that,
that's the most middle school thing I've ever heard.
So she would get a hug, he would get the money, and they'd be happily, it was a happy exchange. But no, it's funny you bring that up. I never saw myself as like an entrepreneur. I wasn't one of those kids that was like, I'm gonna like hustle my way through. I want to start my own thing. In fact, I almost was against starting my own thing because I thought it wasn't worth the risk. Yeah. And I think what I realized is I kind of had these characteristics, self-discipline, drive, all the things that I think are important ingredients. Yeah. But I never thought I was like somebody who is like a entrepreneur. And there's many cases like that, right? Yeah. That guy. And there's many cases like that. Like one great example is Brian Chesky from Airbnb, who's the co-founder and CEO of Airbnb. Right. He went to RISD, which is a great design school. He didn't like, he was a captain of the hockey team in school, but it wasn't like he grew up being like, I'm going to be this entrepreneur and founder. And sometimes you kind of just fall into it. Totally. Right? Yeah. So I was on the other side where I just kind of fell into it and didn't really, like, I wasn't like the guy selling candy to people and hustling.
I think sometimes through your 9 to 5 or whatever it is, you gain the experience to be able to have the ideas that you otherwise wouldn't be able to have. You know, if you just said, yeah, I want to be an entrepreneur, and then you're just be an entrepreneur. Look, if you put in the hard work, I'm sure you can make it happen, but sometimes maybe it doesn't fall into your lap, but at least the idea presents itself, and now you're in a spot where you can take advantage of it.
100%. I mean, I like when people ask me about like transitioning to do their own thing, I think there's this like misconception, I've talked about this before, that you have to like jump into the unknown and take this big risk and burn the boats and all this stuff, when the reality is like, you can just do things, and the more things you do, the more you learn, and like you can test your ideas in a small way. Yeah. Like you don't have to like burn. And I think because there's this like false dichotomy that is levied on people when they're like, oh, I need to like quit my job and do all this. Like I didn't quit my job when I was starting my own thing. I worked on the evenings and weekends. But like I got some feedback and signal that there was something that was working that gave me the courage to then transition. Right. And I think like more people need to have, not need to, but should have that mindset when they're considering something, because it seems less scary.
I think there's a lot of information that floats around these days, especially in the entrepreneurial space. I mean, I'm a big fan of, motivational podcasts.
Oh, nice.
Goggins, Les Brown, some old school guys too. I'll be watching some 80s motivational videos, totally into it, But these days, when you're on Instagram, it's funny, you can get 20 different notions of what it is to be an entrepreneur in, a minute. And all of them are, you've got to drop it, sink or swim, or, you got to go full in. And I think I agree. I mean, if you can find a way with your day job to put in probably some extra hours, it lessens the risk. It allows you to flesh out your ideas a little bit more, and probably make that leap with a little bit more confidence than, better make this work or we ain't paying the bills sort of thing.
Exactly. So and one thing I've also learned, Christian, is like, it's not like there's not one way to do things. I think when you're first starting out or you're doing anything, like oftentimes I've noticed there's this like correlation between like
self-belief and how much advice you take from others, at least for me.
Yeah.
When my self-belief was low,
Yep.
the advice I seeked out from other people was high.
Yeah.
Now, as I'm like gaining more experience, I'm learning myself more, I'm understanding who I am, my self-belief is increasing and my dependency on advice from others is going down.
Right.
And I think as that dependency is going down and I'm trusting myself more, what I'm realizing is like, there's no one way to do anything. I can find like, if you tell me like, oh, you can't start a company working 3 days a week, like maybe that's true, but I guarantee you I can find somebody that has.
Totally.
That's built a very successful company. So there's no one way to do things. And I think oftentimes the feeling that like you have to like take this advice, you have to do it in this way, like is misguided. And I think like ultimately you should try to trust yourself more and do what you think is right and what feels right.
I agree. It's hard because you want to make Tony Goggins proud whenever you're watching this podcast, you know, and trying to live up to the, I don't know, the expectations of the norm or whatever it might be. But I think at the end of the day, you know, these specific things they sell, you know, when somebody can say, this is the way to do it, that's probably what sells best.
It's
you know?
packaged well.
It motivates people. Oh, that's the key to success. But I think you're right. If you take a step back, you can probably find some other ways to do things.
Have you read the David Goggins books?
Oh, did I say Tony Goggins?
You said Tony, and I was like,
you know what I'm trying to say.
He combined Tony Robbins and David Goggins. I was like, the ultimate. I kind of let it slide because I was like, that's a good pair up. Tony Goggins, 2024.
The ultimate motivator. No, I haven't. I did see him speak at the Aspire Tour in Dallas this year, though, and he got up there with Mark Cuban, and really cool to, you know, just kind of be in the presence of somebody like that. I like to take things with a grain of salt. I'm definitely not like a Kool-Aid drinker, I guess, in terms of like, oh my gosh. But I think everybody's got something to teach, and he's definitely got some really cool things to teach. My whole family is military too, or a lot of my dad's side is military, and so not being in the military, it's kind of cool to listen to somebody who's this hardcore, you know, Marine, and there's something really cool about just going hard, you know, and that's what I really like about David Goggins, not Tony Goggins.
No, I really resonate with that. So going to your dad, so your dad's side, what was your dad? What did he do?
He was in the Air Force. Okay. My grandfather was in the Navy, brother was in the Navy. And, you know, from there. But yeah, my middle brother and I both went the college route. And so, you know, it's kind of weird. I felt like there was some kind of legacy there with, you know, with military, but my dad was pretty insistent on college. I was the first of my family to go to college full-time. You know, there's night school and stuff here and there, but that was pretty much sold to me from the day I was born was, you know, you're going to go to a 4-year university and do your thing. So that's what I did. But I think the influence in terms of, you know, military, especially in sports, you know, I really like just the grind, you know, just like, let's go in there and let's kill it and let's do our best, and teamwork and brotherhood and all the keywords that you could use for that sort of thing. But it was, I think it was a pretty big impact.
Do you think that came from your like being exposed to the Air Force and the military growing up? Yeah,
I would say so. I think it was, you know, in my dad's parenting style, he wasn't, you know, super hardcore or anything, but, you know, three brothers and a dad. There's, you know, 4 guys in the house and stepmom. And, you know, I think it's kind of the mentality of, you know, brush it off, you know, rub some dirt on it sort of thing. And it's kind of funny now being in corporate America, because you can't really say that to people. You can't say, you know, like, oh, you're dealing with something, like rub some dirt on it. But I think that's been a really good balance and challenge for me, is to take that kind of hardcore mentality, like, oh, you're tired because you had to work a lot. Well, too bad, you know, keep putting in the work. It's pretty hardcore, but on the flip side, I think I've been able to learn a lot of patience and sympathy and empathy and things like that with my team, so that it's a good balance. It's let's put in work when we can, and if we need to chill out a little bit, then we can do that too. So, are
you the older brother or younger brother?
The youngest.
You're the youngest.
Yeah, the youngest. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of funny. My oldest brother really showed everybody up. He became a nuclear engineer in the Navy straight out of high school. And so
wow,
my middle brother and I are like, all right, cool. Now what are we going to do? Because he's already a nuclear engineer. Very smart guy, works for Google now. My middle brother and I both went to college, and he's a finance major. I'm a marketing guy. And so I think we found our way. We're all doing relatively well.
Yeah.
But it was kind of funny that, older brother just had to step right out and become one of the hardest professions that you can be. So
what is the relationship like between the three of you?
It's great. So my parents are divorced. And so it was kind of weird how when my dad remarried, I got these two brothers. I got two older brothers. And I was probably 2 or 3 years older at the time, so I don't really remember much of that phase, but it's been kind of a blessing. It's absolutely been a blessing. Kind of going back to having this accountability team, they were my first accountability team, right? When you mess up in school and your mom and your dad yell at you, all right, whatever, mom and dad yelled at us. When you mess up in school and your two older brothers tell you that you're being an idiot and you need to get your stuff together, then you listen. And so, I could give them pretty much all the credit for my growth over the last 30 years, because they kind of started the, look, man, we're your brothers, be lenient, we'll have fun and stuff, but when you mess up, we're going to tell you that you messed up, and they'll probably still do that today. And I thank them for it. I'm blessed that I have kind of that accountability team in them.
What is the age difference between the three of you?
Oldest brother is 37 now, 5-year, and then middle brother's 3 years, so 35. So 35 and 37, I'm 32.
Okay, cool. So, okay, got it. So it sounds like you mentioned you weren't super academic growing up. You prioritized a lot of extracurriculars. And when you entered college, you joined a leadership fraternity.
Yeah.
So not a social fraternity, a leadership fraternity.
It was a social one.
It was a social one.
But they prided themselves on being active in the college, community and the campus and stuff like that. So it was very much work hard, play hard sort of thing.
What was your college like? Did college change you at all?
College changed me 1,000%. And it's funny because, I talk to younger folks. I'll do some mentoring at UTD every now and then, and when I'm talking to these kids about their professional career, a lot of kids, and I get it, they think that college is a waste of time. A lot of people think college is a waste of time, and for a lot of reasons, I can see that. It's very expensive. You only get out of it what you put into it. But for me, the way that college changed me were the social interactions. So when I got to college, I was kind of this skater kid, I guess. And again, this is where the discipline was kind of going down. I wasn't in baseball anymore. I wasn't in drumline anymore. So I kind of went back to this skateboarder kid, roots that I had from prior to those extracurriculars. But when I got there, I was just kind of lost, and I was hanging out with some people that, I just didn't know who to hang out with. Like, oh, you want to be friends? Okay, cool. I don't know anything about you. I don't know what your values are or anything like that. But I quickly realized that the people that I was around when I first got to college were not there to succeed or anything like that. They were there to party, basically. And so I remember one night I was looking at these, I left a party or something like that, and I looked at these guys and I was like, I just don't want to be like these people, and I hate to say that, to each their own. I think a lot of those guys have grown out of that phase, but It's like, I'm just not really into this scene. And that night it was funny. I was like, what's the opposite of this? And the opposite at that time was this like fraternity life thing, which it kind of sounds weird because fraternities are known for partying, but it wasn't just this like destructive partying. It was kind of this group sense, extracurricular involvement plus, having a little bit of fun every now and then. And so I joined the fraternity, and I owe all the credit to them as well for being that group of guys that would tell me when I was messing up, and it's kind of funny. I'm just realizing my brothers were the first group, right, of those guys that will tell you, hey, you're not doing things right. And then it was probably baseball and stuff like that, some baseball teammates or something. But then when I get to college, it's this other group of guys that, would tell me to my face if I was not doing something right, if I needed to change my ways. And I found that, and I wouldn't be where I am today without both of those groups, without my brothers in the fraternity.
It's so interesting to me that you bring that up, because I actually went through something super similar in college. There's a podcast called Modern Wisdom by this guy called Chris Williamson. Okay. And he talks about how every time you strive to do something more or to get better, you go through what's called the lonely chapter, where you're essentially taking your current life and you're migrating to a new life. And when you're migrating to a new life, that means you're migrating to a new set of friends, you're migrating to a new set of behaviors, you're migrating to a new set of decisions and who you want to be. And in that transition, you go through this lonely chapter, right? And for me, it was very, very similar to you, actually, where I entered college. I went to USC.
Okay.
And
great school.
Thank you. Yeah. And I was surrounded with people that were all great people, but it just wasn't where I wanted to be in life. It wasn't like the group that I wanted to be with. And I found myself kind of going through this transition, and very similar to you, I actually joined a fraternity. And that completely changed the set of friends I had, the people I hung out with, where I found my co-founder, actually, who I started this company with. And it's so interesting to hear you talk about that, because that's exactly what kind of happened to me. Is I found this group, and yes, there's a lot of not great things about fraternities, but it did give you that brotherhood, and some of the people I met in 2014 are still some of my best friends today.
Absolutely. So. Don't get me wrong. There are plenty of fraternities that were not interested in leadership or growth or anything like that. And I think that if I would have landed there and then realized that, I probably would have done something else. I would have been in the same position, looking around going, this isn't it. But I had some people there. It's funny when people call you out on things respectively, how that gains trust, or that builds trust with that person or with that group, right? If I'm with people who are always telling me I'm doing things right and everything's fine and you're awesome and cool, you can still have trust with those people. But when people say, no, that wasn't good, you're better than that, you're better than what you just showed me, try it again. To me, that's the ultimate form of trust and bonding and relationships, or whatever that might be, is the ability to have that conversation. So that's what I found, and it was super important. And I spend time with those guys almost weekly, if not, monthly. So
I another thing that stood out to me from what you said was, you're going through this period where you met a group of people in college, you didn't quite feel like they were the right people for you. And you asked this question, what would the exact opposite be? And there's something, I don't know if you know who Charlie Munger is, but Charlie Munger was Warren Buffett's right-hand person.
Yes.
Charlie and Warren had a 5-decade plus, maybe 6-decade plus relationship. Charlie passed away, I think, a year ago. And Charlie is a big inspiration for me just because of the way he thinks. One of the things he employs is called the inversion. So in order to solve a problem or to understand something deeply, ask yourself what the opposite is. Because oftentimes it gives you more clarity. It's if you want to do something well, ask yourself what would make it not be good. And usually there's a lot more clarity there.
Yeah.
So I found that really interesting that you kind of did the same thing there.
It's cool. I think it's also it's a very matter of fact stance on change or, what you want. It's not like, well, I could do this. It's like, no, what is the opposite, right? You don't like this. What's the exact opposite that you can think of, and go do that, because you don't like what it is now. So maybe the opposite is what you like. And so it's been huge. That was a huge pivotal moment. I remember that day, and it's weird when you have days like that. I've had, thousands of days since that I don't remember, but remember that moment going, yeah, I'm going to change. So it was great.
So you kind of joined this fraternity, you graduate, and you're not in multifamily, you're in a different industry.
So what's funny is, when I was in college, I worked at a car wash. I worked at a taco stand, very sexy jobs, by the way. And then I was like a junior or something. I was like, man, I need a cooler job. Like, where are the cool kids working? And they were all working at apartments. And so this guy in my geography class or something like that was like, yeah, I work at Wildwood, was the name of the apartment complex. Come by, I'll get you a job. And I was like, okay, cool. I mean, the power of just networking, I guess. But he brought me in. I did a 20-minute interview on the spot and got a job at an apartment complex there. Fast forward, I'm applying to RPM, and they're like, oh, it looks like you've got some apartment experience. And I'm like, oh yeah, I do. Cool. I'll be honest, I didn't know what multifamily, I mean, I knew what it was, but we throw around this word multifamily, right? Like, if you're not in real estate, you probably hear multifamily, like, what's that? Oh, apartments. Okay, cool. I was in that section of the world whenever I applied to RPM. So I graduated college after working in an apartment, and yes, did not go into multifamily. But then I got some random job at a recruiting firm downtown. It's funny, actually, my first job was right down there. It was very flashy. I was making no money, but I was working downtown, and there's something about that where you're like, I'm 21 years old and going to work downtown. It's very cool. I'm in the big city, and realized I couldn't afford to live down here either. But it was really interesting how I'll just tell you how I got into marketing. I think that's kind of where we're going. I was working down there, and recruiting is interesting. It takes a very special person to be able to call people all day and tell them that they should follow their passions, basically. Like that's what the sell was, right? Hey, you're great at this. Here's a job for you. Why don't you take it? You deserve this, right? And all the while I'm having these conversations, and I'm like, I probably need to follow my own advice, because this is not what I'm passionate about. This is not fun for me. I need something that's like colorful, and we have creativity and things like that. And so I quit, which was probably a really stupid idea at the time, because I was broke to begin with, and now I had zero money. And so I just started doing like graphic designs and websites wherever I could find them. I would call people from the fraternity and be like, hey, does anybody have any marketing work or anything like that? And I found some stuff. I worked at a skate park for about 8 months doing marketing for them. And finally I applied to Reach Local, a marketing firm up in Plano. I used to be in Plano, and got me an entry-level marketing job. And so that whole path took about a year. It's very, very somber times, but I think the whole lesson there is that I realized that I was not where I wanted to be, and made the decision, and kind of had to become an entrepreneur a little bit, right? I had to learn this skill. I had a marketing degree, but they don't teach you digital advertising at school. They don't teach you what you're actually doing. They teach you various marketing concepts and stuff like that. So kind of had to reinvent who I was at the time and keep growing. So very pivotal pivotal moment for me, making that decision.
How did you learn? Learn everything? What do you think you did?
I learned once I got the job.
Yeah.
It's funny, I joke. I thought marketing was email blasts, websites, and flyers whenever I graduated college. I had a marketing degree, and that's what I thought marketing was. And then, I did these projects, and I did well in the interview, I guess. I don't know how, but I did well in the interview. I got the job, right? I got this entry-level job. And then it was just boot camp from there. I tell any of these, college kids that are telling me they want to get into marketing, my recommendation, find a digital agency and jump right in and work your butt off for 4 or 5 years. By the time you get out of there, you are going to be such an expert at advertising, digital marketing, KPIs, performance, talking to clients, etc. And that's exactly what I did. My first call was horrible. Somebody actually came up to me and said, "Was that your first call, man?" And I was like, "Yeah, it wasn't bad." And it was bad. But man, by the time I got out of there, I was just rocking and rolling on the marketing side, and that provided a ton. So yeah, go digital agencies if you're interested in marketing. It's huge.
I love it. And then the RPM journey started when?
Yeah, actually started the day of the COVID lockdown, March 16th, 2020, I think it was. The day that, the president was like, okay, nobody go to work. So I go down to Austin for my orientation, and it's kind of weird. We were sitting there, they're telling you about the dress policy and stuff like that, and somebody comes in and like whispers in the ear, and then that person goes, "Okay, everybody needs to go home now. The lockdown has officially started." So then I went home for a whole year, which was weird. Starting a new job. I guess I worked from home for a few months, but really hadn't had this extended work from home policy, and that was interesting to get used to. Just moved back to Dallas at the time, and so it was just a really interesting time. But eventually we came back, and it's again, I think RPM has kind of been multifamily boot camp in a way, similar to digital advertising boot camp, like at Reach. I think that's all it takes sometimes. You jump into something new, and then you just start doing work, and sometimes the work sucks, and people tell you the work sucks, and you go, "Okay, cool." And then you try it again, and just keep doing it. Even 5 years later, I'm, by no means a multifamily expert, but I feel much more comfortable in it now. So that feels good. And I can lead the marketing team now, with the knowledge that I have. But that's kind of where that's been.
The cool thing about your role at RPM is you started, you and I were talking before this, was it the fourth or third marketing person? Or
Yeah. So it's really weird how I got the job. So, my wife and I were dating long distance. We made the decision, hey, one of us needs to move closer to the other person. And so I just started applying to jobs. I'll be honest, sorry for anybody listening to this. Multifamily was like not on my radar to go after or anything like that. I didn't really have a radar. I was just like, I need a job in marketing, in Dallas. Let's find one. And RPM Living had a role open. And so, interviewed. I guess I did okay, got the job. And when I get in, there was 3 other marketing managers, which is basically the account manager for marketing, and a marketing director and myself. So four total marketing managers and our director. And now I think we're sitting at about 115 marketing personnel on the team at RPM. So, kudos to leadership, to Jason and his vision and just driving growth over the last few years. It has been absolutely wild. But I wouldn't have it any other way. It's the perfect way to learn. It's just getting thrown into a company that is growing and going, and we made it happen. We're kind of on the other side of that huge growth phase that we've had, and it's taught us a lot of lessons. And, you can kind of see who the OGs are just by like how they handle things at the company. Cause when you have, we took over 100 communities in 1 month, and when you take over 100 communities, 4 communities doesn't seem that bad, and so we'll have people like, oh man, I've got a lot of takeovers or whatever it might be. And, I think we kind of look at them and go, should have been there for the crazy days, when we were going crazy. But, anyways, it's been a hell of a ride. I'm so glad that I clicked that apply button that day, because it's just been the right place at the right time. I think you can do hard work, but sometimes you just got to find your fit and be in a place with a lot of opportunity. And it's definitely been that for me. So it's been great.
One thing that is particularly interesting about your journey through RPM is you joined at single-digit marketing people in the company, and now you mentioned there's over 100.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for people that are looking to grow as quickly as you did in a company? Because you started as what was the title?
Senior marketing manager.
Senior marketing manager. Now you're a
managing director.
A managing director, which at 32 is pretty impressive, right? So what advice would you have for people that are looking to do the same in their career?
I don't think there's a roadmap for something like that. I think I've been extremely blessed and extremely lucky. I could have easily taken a job with a different company at that time that I was looking, right? It was literally a click away, right? And that company may have not had the growth potential that RPM did at the time. To answer your question, I think a lot of it is kind of an unknown. You want to try to see the signs for growth and opportunity, both personal and professional and all that. But I really think it's just honing your skills, and being as good as you can be in all aspects of your profession. That does not mean perfect by any means, right? I don't think anybody out there is perfect. I'm certainly not perfect. I have to ask my team all the time things that I should probably know as their boss, but that's why I have them there, is for them to be this special source of knowledge that I need and somebody else might need. And I can be that source of knowledge for other things. And so I guess just really trying to refine your skills in every way, asking for feedback so that you know where you need to refine your skills, and just being as sharp as you can be, so that whenever the opportunity does come, you're ready, right? And you can kind of jump into it. But sometimes it's just right place, right time. And I'm lucky enough to say that it was a lot of that for me in this regard.
How big is your team today that you work with?
My personal team is, we've got kind of sections of teams in Dallas. It's about eight people. Yeah, in Dallas. And then we have our whole digital agency, reputation management team, creative agency, other property marketing groups all across the country. So 8 times, however many states we're in now. It's hard to keep track, but it's been just crazy growth, and I'm just so glad that I was one of the OGs.
Yeah. What are some management, like if you were to boil down management, your personal style of management to like 3 things, what would that be?
Yeah. I'll give you one thing right off the bat. It's just trust. You can only survive for so long without trust. And I really mean survive whenever I say that. I hired all of my team members for a reason. It's because I trust that they can either do the job that they need to do at that moment in time, or they can find the resources to do their job, or they can ask the right questions to do the job, right? Like, you don't have to be perfect all the time. It would be absolutely insane to not expect mistakes or learning periods or whatever it might be. But I have to let my team know that I trust them to do the job that they were hired for, because that's why I hired them. And I think that's what's helped my team and I not just grow in terms of personnel, but just grow as kind of this, I hate to say it, family. I know that sounds kind of cliche whenever you're talking about your job, but this group of people that has each other's backs. And when you go to war, or go into some challenge with a group of people that have your back, it's not as daunting, right? And that's what I always want to be for my team, is just that person where we're going to go into that battle together, whatever that battle might be. And no matter what the outcome is, we're going to walk out of it together, and we're going to talk about how to improve it together, find the solution together, whatever it might be. If it goes well, great. All the kudos to them, and, championing the battle. But I just, I always want them to know that that I trust them, and that they've earned my trust, and that we can just do our jobs and go home at 5:30 and live our lives, which is really important to me. So trust is the first thing.
Too many.
I think I'm just going to leave it at trust,
Yeah.
because I think that's just the building block for everything. Yeah.
So I want to shift gears and talk a little bit about the future of this industry, where you think it's headed, particularly around AI.
Yeah.
You've been privileged to see RPM grow over the years, and now have meaningful exposure to multifamily and trends. Like, where do you think AI should be more prevalent in the industry?
Yeah.
And where do you think the opportunities are for companies or vendors to help PMCs?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'll kind of speak to what we're seeing now, and how I think maybe it could be improved, and then maybe where it could go. But right now, a lot of it is on the operations side. It's the goal, I think, for most AI platforms are to enhance response rates and to decrease missed call rates, right? And that's, as a marketing team, my team, or a professional, excuse me, you can drive as many leads and visits and things as possible. I mean, I can drive thousands of leads, but if the response isn't good, if the response rate's not good, if they're not even picking up the phone or whatever it might be, I might as well just turn the campaign off, because we've got to take advantage of, those things we're spending money on. And so I think where AI is coming in is allowing prospects to feel more comfortable in that they're being taken care of. The AIs are getting so good that you don't even know it's an AI sometimes. You'll call in, it'll be, instead of an after-hour service, it'll be a really awesome AI bot that speaks to you and can pull, information from the website or from online sources and stuff. And I think that helps a lot. But where I think we could get better at that, and I definitely don't have the answer for this, is finding ways to combine the human interaction more with the AI, because nothing beats talking to a real person, even if that real person's customer service skills aren't superior. There's something just about, whenever you're trying to call a business, let me finally connect with somebody, you don't have to talk to the answering service, 7 steps through. Whenever you finally get something, there's something really special about that. I think with AI developments, maybe you don't even realize that you're still on with a bot, so it depends on that. But I think really trying to marry a little bit of AI with a little bit of human interaction, kind of 50-50, I think that's the perfect balance, because I think people are a little bit scared of AI, if I'm being honest. They're like, I don't think I want to give my information, to this bot, but I guess that's where the improvements and those conversations are going to go with those companies. But that's where I've seen it the most, right? I've seen it the most with customer interactions and improving engagement, between the customer and the seller, basically the on-site team for us. Where do I think it could improve? I think organization would be huge. I know there's already, my wife's using an app now. I think it's called Motive or something like that. It starts with an M. But you give it your whole schedule and it creates a whole calendar for you. And you tell it when you want breaks, how long you want the break, and how consistent you want those breaks. and it builds out this whole organizational path for you. And so it's not really in multifamily. I think it's really just in organizational efficiency. I could see a lot of help with that because I think a lot of new professionals, they come into the industry or they come into their first jobs and they don't know how to manage their time well. You know, they think they're busy, but really they're just not managing their time very well. And so I lead my team on that. It's like, you know, set these times for yourselves and stop whenever the timer is done, right? Like do as much as you can during this amount of time. And then if you got your 15-minute break, you better take your break. You know, you got to force people to like stop sometimes. And so I think organization could be really huge. Maybe even for scheduling, you know, in the multifamily space or something like that, just finding ways to make that easier. And then in terms of marketing, it's hard for me to say. I kind of hate that AI has taken over design in a way because I know these designers and I know how good they are. And again, I think there's this personal touch of receiving a message of what you want a brand to be and being able to be creative, you know, in that brand, not just kind of throwing, you know, different verbs onto a t-shirt or something like that. Like really, you know, being thoughtful about branding and stuff like that. And so for me, I think it could be in the future. I think AI branding softwares and stuff, it's really exciting to think about, but it's got to be good. It's got to be good for people to buy. So
and I think
see how that goes.
Especially on the last point, that's where human and AI can come into play too. It's funny that you bring up the human and AI piece because that's exactly why we built our company. Right. One of the things that we noticed was AI is super effective for answering a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. But if you are a property management company and AI is handling some leads and you're handing off the leads to the on-site team, one, there's kind of this confusion and there's not this symbiotic relationship. So it's actually pretty funny you bring that up because that's exactly why we built our company is to have AI answer common questions and then our own internal human leasing team that can jump in to create that hybridization. Because I think you want to keep that experience consistent and unified. Otherwise, it becomes kind of broken up and piecemeal.
Yeah, I agree. It's tough. It's a tough challenge. You know, I can say where I think the challenge is, but I definitely don't have, you know, the technical expertise or anything like that to code that into the software. But yeah, I mean, I would imagine that it's going to get really good, right? That's what I expect. Just kind of seeing where it is now is that we'll be able to create an AI, not we, somebody else, we'll be able to create an AI that can speak to you like a human and can have these tone, you know, differentiations and maybe sarcasm and stuff like that, or, you know, identifying that somebody lives here and maybe they'd be interested in this restaurant. You know, I almost can 100% guarantee that we're going to have an AI that can find those things and speak to those things when, you know, they're getting that call. But right now, that's where the improvement needs to be is either joining humans and AIs or just making the AI so good that you don't even know that it's an AI.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. Yeah, we're already on our way there to having Kelsey, which is our AI, respond with restaurant recommendations, things that are close by, and kind of providing that personalized communication layer.
That's what a human would do.
Exactly.
They'd say, oh, you're from Plano. Have you been to, well, we actually have one of those here in, you know, this area, right? And making those human connections that might otherwise be a little bit more difficult to make as a robot.
Exactly. Well, Christian, thank you for joining us today. This was super cool to hear about your background and your transition and your role in marketing and your opinion on AI and a lot of dynamicism in this conversation. So I really appreciate the time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's been a blast.
Cheers, man.
Absolutely.
Cool.